Hey everyone, Jeff here, also known as the Revit Kid. Welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. I'm super excited for my guest today and what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about pyRevit. If you haven't heard of it, you will hear about it today. If you have heard of it, you're going to hear from the creator of it. So super excited, awesome add-in. It's changed my life, and I'm sure it's changed plenty of yours who have used it. But before we jump into it, I want to thank you for joining me live tonight. If you are a new viewer, thank you for checking us out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube or head on over to therevitkid.com and sign up for my mailing list. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much. This is episode 35. For those of you that don't know what this show is all about, this is a weekly live stream that I started actually back in the beginning of quarantine. It started as a weekly happy hour and sort of morphed into a little bit more formal of a show, but as you can see, I'm still drinking because it's 7:30 at night here. But basically, we talk about Revit, BIM, and essentially anything related to that technology space, architecture, engineering, construction, and yeah, thank you for joining again. I appreciate it. The other thing to mention is that we are live, and there is a chat box here on YouTube, so make sure that you ask questions, chat along. I'll be checking it out the whole time, and we'll definitely be looking for your questions and to answer them live tonight, so don't be shy about that. Before we jump into content, I did want to mention our sponsor, BIMbox, and talk a little bit about them. So check out this little reel, and then I'll tell you some awesome. They have a phenomenal offer happening this month. So let's check out the video. Oh man, what a cool video, huh? So BIMbox, for those of you that don't know what BIMbox is, BIMbox makes desktops and laptops for the AEC community. More specifically, these things are designed for Revit. The Striker 2, which is sitting right behind me, the thing literally, it was built, optimized, designed, and created for Revit users. So whenever you're asking yourself, what is a Revit machine, they've got you covered. I've been using them for over 9 months now and testing them to the max. I can promise you. I've tried out the worst possible models that you guys can ever create out there, and these things they make 3 gigabytes worth of Revit files feel like a simple 30 megabyte model, which is phenomenal. And so again, check it out behind me. That's the Striker 2 tower. They also have phenomenal notebooks that you definitely want to check out. But what I really want to let you know about is not only do they ship in 10 to 14 days, no matter what size the order. So if you ordered 20 desktops right now, they will ship in under 14 days. They offer a 3-year warranty with every single machine. But here's the cool part. Right now, till the end of the year, they are offering $800 off a Striker 2 desktop for BIM After Dark viewers, so you guys, $1,400 off the Osprey desktop, which that thing is created and designed for laser scanning and processing scans. Anyone out there who's ever dealt with scans knows that processing of scans is an absolute beast. And then also $150 off laptops right now. The reason they're doing this is they've got a stock of phenomenal graphics cards in hand. And they know that, and you guys probably know that too, Bitcoin just hit almost 20 grand. And anyone who's familiar with Bitcoin at all knows that you need graphics cards to mine Bitcoins. And whenever Bitcoin goes crazy like this, guess what? You cannot get graphics cards. Try right now to go on Newegg or Amazon and try to get yourself a 2070 or the 30, forget about the 3000 series right now. You cannot get them. So right now, till the end of the year, they're offering $800 off a desktop, $1,400 off the laser scanning desktop, and $150 off a laptop. All you have to do is let them know that you heard about them here on the Revit Kid / BIM After Dark Live, or just mention my name, Jeff, and they'll hook you up. So how would you get that? You simply email them at sales@bimboxusa or head over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com. So let's jump into this, huh? Thank you, BIMbox, by the way. So I'm going to introduce my guest right now. Ehsan, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. Let me make sure your audio's on. Okay, perfect. Because I actually didn't check that. We did all this great audio video tech before, and I had you muted the entire time. So thank God I checked that before you said hello. So Ehsan is joining us from the West Coast. I'm here on the East Coast. It's always funny, and I only say that because I think with this virtual world we're living in now, especially, I've been having meetings with people in various time zones, and for whatever reason, time zones are the hardest thing to figure out with meetings. And I don't know what it is, but certain email clients sometimes set it up funny, and the other ones, and I'm always going back and forth. So thank you for joining me and being on time.
Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome, awesome. So, Ehsan, you are the creator of pyRevit, right?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
like to call myself a pirate dad.
The pyRevit dad. Okay. So maybe before we jump into pyRevit itself, maybe tell the folks here a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your background, how you came to be the dad of pyRevit.
So the short version is that I grew up back in my country, Iran, and we have a national exam to get into universities. And I really loved computer science, but I wasn't really like my grades weren't really good enough to get into the actually computer science programs. So I was just shy and short of getting into those programs. And it's because it's national exam, there's like massive competition to get into those kind of stuff. So my second choice was architecture, which I actually liked a lot. And retrospectively, if I go back, I'll do that again. So I ended up kind of studying architecture, but stayed involved with the computer science, computer programming kind of realm at the same time. And I really I learned all the software that I needed even before I get to the school, and like AutoCAD and everything else. The only thing that I really didn't learn before I leave Iran was Revit, and partly because it wasn't really popular back then. Um, it was mostly like getting more and more popular in the Western world. And more,
So what were you using in architecture school to do your studio
mostly
work?
AutoCAD. It was mostly like our most powerful tools were AutoCAD, Photoshop for like all the presentation and stuff, and 3D Studio for rendering,
Mm-hmm.
3D Studio Max.
Mm-hmm.
I personally use Maya for rendering because I like Maya a lot, but our drafting software was pretty much AutoCAD. Um, anyway, so I studied architecture, and then I got a chance to move to the US, and I came here, and I didn't have basically the only resume that I had was for the architecture stuff that I'd done and the
Mm-hmm.
school that I've gone to. So I ended up continuing architecture here in the US and got my license and all that kind of stuff. And this is where I really started working with Revit. But when I started using it, I was like, well, you know what? We had AutoCAD and we had like a command line, and this thing doesn't have it doesn't give me the power that I really want
And
to
wait a
get.
minute, it does the command and I don't hit enter? What?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly. Like,
understand.
escape and I don't know, 5 more extra escapes that I have to do to get out of everything. Um, so I quickly started researching because I knew Python. I quickly started researching to see if I can connect it to Python. I was already familiar with Python being used in a lot of different applications. Like Maya uses Python, Blender, it's pretty much built on Python extensively.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of other applications use Python as their scripting environment. And I found this project that was called that's called Revit Python Shell. And that sort of like gave me an introduction of how I can start hooking up Python inside Revit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is just history, basically. I just started creating a whole bunch of scripts to do things. And then I had a need that, hey, I can't keep running this RPS to go and select the script file and all that kind of stuff. I have to make it faster, maybe put them in the Revit interface and whatnot. So it just, started growing from there and became PyRevit now.
Now, your desire to use Python in Revit, was it initially for automating processes and making your life easier, or was it just because you knew that there was some power in other programs you were using and you thought there was going to be some power here? Or
No, to be honest with you, a lot of it started because I was like managing a project and I need to constantly do area calculations and all that kind of stuff. So it was like all related to the math that we had to
mm-hmm.
do on the project and keep it updated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the first places that I'm like, I can't set up a view that gives me that information, or what is it, the schedule that gives me that information. I need to be able to run a custom report on this
Mm-hmm.
and look at how the model is progressing. So that's what I ended up using it for. But then once I started, learning the Revit API and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much else we can do with this.
So then I guess for the folks here, because I know there's going to be people here who maybe have never heard of or have no idea what pyRevit is, maybe now is a good time to sort of just give a little overview introduction of how you would define pyRevit.
Yeah, so I would say I always talk about like pyRevit has two different aspects, but it's really like a fruit that has like a kernel in the middle and some wrapping around it. Right, the wrapping around it is the meat around it is really the tools that you get with pyRevit. If you install pyRevit, you get all these basic tools that come with it. There's a pattern maker, there's a Keynote Manager, there's a good print tool, there's a lot of like really good selection tools, model management stuff. And they're fairly powerful tools, and a lot of them don't have really good counterparts in the market, or you have to pay a lot of money to get something similar to it.
Right.
So a lot of people like find those very handy.
Yeah.
But the real pyRevit for me, like from my standpoint, was that kernel that sits in the middle, that sits in the center. That is really the runtime that allows me to add Python scripts, C# scripts, hooks, and collect telemetry information and all that kind of stuff into from all these like pyRevit tools, and lets me deploy this to all the users in my company for them to be able to use all these tools and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. So to try and simplify it for maybe folks who aren't fully familiar with API and add-ins and scripts, essentially you're able to now write a script, let's say as an example, trying to keep something simple, and execute it within Revit. Is that without doing all of the and again, I'm trying to balance the computer science geeky side of it with folks out there who maybe just don't give a shit about that but want to use the tools, let's say.
Yep.
But trying to understand it, it's really, if anyone's tried to build an add-in for Revit using C# and Visual Basic through that whole thing, to me, when I tried it, the hardest part for me was referencing correctly and connecting and executing and all that stuff. And so what you've done is created an area where you can simply code and the thing basically runs, right? And that within Revit, I should say, within the Revit environment. Is that sort of the right simplified version of it?
Yeah. So the most important thing for me was that I was working as an architect, so I needed to be able to write tools while I'm doing my job, right? The traditional development for Revit is that you have to get Visual Studio installed, write your program in C#, run Revit, load your program, debug it, make sure it works, close it, fix it, same loop again.
Yep.
We know that like it takes a little bit to open Revit, and if you have a big model that you want to test that tool on, it takes like, I don't know, some models take half an hour to open.
Right.
And you're like, I can't. You couldn't really realistically waste that time.
Right. And then if you had to close it and debug again, you're doing that every time you're running that. You're trying to. Yeah.
So I needed an environment so I can play with this program that I'm trying to create. And Python is a really good language to do this. And pyRevit will give you that kind of environment inside Revit. So you could play, run it, make some errors, don't close your model or do anything, change the script, run it again, and it would basically run the newer version of your code.
Awesome. And so I will add my own little flavor to this is the tools themselves, forget about the whole Python part of it, but the tools themselves are awesome. There's a couple ridiculously great tools, and we're going to show some of those today, but I will say that, the Hatch Creator, or pattern creator, whatever you want to call it. See, even I'm a CAD user from way back when, right? Hatch creator, the pattern creator, and then to me one of my favorite ones is the pick tool, because it's just it's you spend 9 years, 10 years, 11 years in Revit, and always going through, let's select everything and filter out what we want. To reverse that thinking, it's like, well, duh, that makes so much sense, especially when I'm using a ridiculously large model. So thank you for those. If you made it or someone, I know it open. Actually, perfect question here. What made you decide to go open source with it?
So I absolutely love open source and sort of like opening the software that you create to the outside, because especially when you're trying to figure out a tool that you kind of have some use case for it, but you don't really understand how it's going to be used outside, it's best for the tool to be open so other people can use it and push it in different directions that you have never dreamed of. And then you get a product that's really good and more powerful and useful for a whole new group of people, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up in a world that internet was free, and the operating systems back at the time, like Unix, there's a lot of like, BSD, open source. You could do a lot of like that. And Linux was very popular and whatnot. Now everything sort of like, is wrapped around a lot of like, application layers, and everything's pretty and kind of that kind of stuff. But I really absolutely love that, because I learned so much from reading other people's code and be able to use their tools freely.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to do the same thing for the industry that I was at, knowing that this would save a lot of time from the companies that sort of like are my counterparts, to be able to save a lot of time and money, not getting things that we think should be in the application by default, like a pattern maker, and spend their money somewhere else on the products that really matter more and sort of like they're more complex and better designed and helps their workflow and stuff.
Awesome. So cool. Real quick, we did have a question actually from Dana. What's up, Dana? Nice to see you here. She asked, how did you learn Python throughout your journey? Was it through like Lisp and CAD and stuff like that? Or was it, was there, what moment did you start learning Python and how did you go about it?
So I think I started learning Python in like back in 2010-ish. And I went through the tutorials basically because I knew throughout my, like since I went to architecture school and before that, I knew how to write C and C++ code, but writing those is really hard and takes a lot of time and all that kind of stuff. So I was always on the lookout for a scripting language that's easier to use on a daily basis. And Python was a great programming language when I started using it. Actually, I can say for sure that I've written more Python code in my life than any other language. It's just that you could use it for everything. For a period of time in the previous company that I was working at, I had a Python script that would do like standard emails that I needed to send to my boss and all that kind of stuff. It's really the Swiss knife of the programming languages.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you've created now an environment where folks like me can learn it in Revit instead of learning it through the natural. Oh, you got to install Visual Basic, you got or whatever tool you're using for the coding, and then go through that. And you can actually use it inside of Revit. You don't have to go through the idea of referencing, executing, building, all that stuff, and you can see how the code works right away. I mean, very similar to like Dynamo and using it within that environment. Like that's kind of where my only Python skills come from is stuff I've written in Dynamo, and that's the same thing where it's like you're getting instant feedback from your code, and that's so helpful, right? It's just instead of running and having those struggles in the beginning and the end of bugging and running and all that stuff, be able to do it and then see the feedback and then understand what the heck your code just did is like massive, huge.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump right into it. Maybe I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions, but let's jump in and maybe highlight some of your favorite tools. We'll take some questions, and I know you mentioned maybe sharing some newer stuff that's coming out, so maybe we'll start with highlighting a few of the cool tools. I do know we should probably start just from the chat here with how do you install pyRevit first. So what I'm going to do is we'll jump into your screen right now, and feel free, man, take it away.
Okay. So thanks, man. The first thing you want to do if you sort of like want to get pyRevit installed on your machine and know more about pyRevit, go to wiki.pyrevitlabs.io. That'll take you to this Notion page, which is technically the homepage for the pyRevit project. You'll have a big bookmark link here for the source code, the forums that we just started, sort of like a discourse format, forum style thing. That join, ask questions. More people are joining. We literally started this like 2 weeks ago, so there's not really that many users in there, but people are joining every day. So
awesome. And by the way, everyone, I will put any links that Ehsan mentions here, I will have in the description in YouTube, and I'll also have it on the blog post tomorrow. So I'm going to try and type in the chat, but I don't want people to furiously be trying to follow your links. I'll put them there.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, man.
The homepage takes you through getting started using pyRevit and developing for pyRevit. These are the two aspects of the pyRevit that we talked about. The tools, using pyRevit is just using the tools, just like any other Revit add-on. You don't need to know programming and anything like that. You just download pyRevit, install it, start using the tools. Or if you want to get into development, these kind of resources will help you get through the development. There's a whole bunch of stuff about like staying updated and getting involved with the project and whatnot that they can take a look at. If you start getting started with developing for pyRevit, this developer docs is a very, very important resource. It gets you through how you can start creating different commands. There's a whole Python for Revit course in here. These are links to the YouTube channel.
Nice.
And I keep adding to them as much as I can. And then these are like big references to everything about how pyRevit works, the input, the output window, the different bundle types that we talk about, and all sorts of stuff that you need to know about pyRevit itself.
Awesome.
So that's the homepage. And then if you want to get it installed, go into the source code, and it'll take you to the GitHub page. This is a little bit daunting at first when you look at it, but on the right-hand side, you get the about for the project, and there's this sort of like section that's called releases. You can see that 4.7.6 is the latest release. That's the latest sort of like stable release that we have. But if you click on the releases, it's better to install one of these newer pre-releases, 4.8, 4 or the beta 5 is the most recent one. They're fairly stable. You can use the tools and all that kind of stuff. I'm calling it beta because it's not like some of this stuff that are newer features haven't been completely figured out yet. But it's fairly stable as far as using them. And then inside this link, if you go under the assets, you'll get the installer from right here. And that's typical for all the projects that you see published to GitHub. I'm planning on having a better place on the homepage to have this like the most recent one linked for easier download and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But you can just click on this link, download the installer, run it just like any other application, and it would install it on your machine. I'll show you the, let's go ahead and open that one right here. I'm going to go through the same process. Wiki pyRevit Labs will take me to Notion page.
And so that is, it's wiki.pyrevitlabs.io, just for everyone out there. And I think I posted it in there, wiki.pyrevitlabs.io. I did. My microphone was in the way, so I don't know if I typed it perfectly. Sorry, guys.
I'm going to go here, and I'm going to actually maybe download one of their, let's actually download the, well, it doesn't matter. Let's just download the latest one. I just want to show you how the process works. Download the exe file, and it's about 70 megabytes, so it should download fairly quickly.
So people are already asking what versions does it work in. So are there versions people should avoid or aren't ready yet or don't work as far as versions of Revit, I should say. Sorry. Versions of Revit.
I would say pyRevit is, so one of the neat things about pyRevit is that there's only one version of pyRevit for all the Revit versions they use. pyRevit compiles itself dynamically when it loads inside any of the Revit versions. Mm-hmm. So one installation of pyRevit, there's this concept related to it that's called attachments, that you install pyRevit and then you attach it to whatever number of different Revit versions that you have. Mm-hmm. The installer by default attaches it to every installed Revit that you have. And I'll show you how you can attach it to other Revit versions as well. So anyway, just like any other installer, go through the next, accept, next. It will install under this path, and you're good to go. Sometimes you install this and you finish, and then you launch Revit and pyRevit is not there. Sometimes there's a bug that pyRevit cannot sort of like find the installed Revit versions. It doesn't happen for everybody. Every once in a while, I get 1 or 2 users that this happens to them. Okay. If you're familiar with PowerShell, just open PowerShell on your Windows, search for PowerShell, and open this. It's a little scary at first, but don't be intimidated. Open it here, and you can say pyRevit env, which is short for environment, and pyRevit will give you a report of the environment that you have. You should see under registered clones deployed from archive or image, there's one called master, which is the master that is installed for you. Mm-hmm. And then using the commands that we'll talk about at the end of this video, you can attach that clone to your Revit versions and then launch it. This sometimes doesn't happen because it's the pyRevit installer can't detect your Revit versions, but it doesn't happen as much. If you show up and if you sort of like don't want to go through this, if you go to the GitHub repo under issues and file a new issue in here and say, hey, I can't install pyRevit, it's erroring and whatnot, I'll pretty quickly respond to you. We'll give you directions on how to get it fixed and whatnot. Or you can come in and ask inside the forums. These are the basic 2 default places that you can come and ask questions.
So in that PowerShell, would you be looking for right there where it says products? Would you be looking for if your product doesn't show up there? So let's say you have 2021.1.1 and it's not showing up on the list. That means that it did not install in that version. Is that kind of what you're checking here?
Yeah. So there are 2 lists for Revit in here. One is installed Revits right here, that it tells you that you have these Revit versions installed. And some of them, it'll tell you that it can't detect that version, right? Okay. Or you know that you have 2021 installed, but it doesn't show up on that list. And this list up high is called the attachment. So it tells me that you have the dev clone of pyRevit, and you have attached the dev clone to all these different Revit versions. So I know that's the specific clone that I'm working with. You don't have to generally deal with this CLI tool. This is a little bit more advanced for people that want to get into development and maybe want to have multiple different versions of pyRevit installed. Like I have 2 different ones in here, and every once in a while I have to switch between these attachments, and you can do this with a single command very quickly, switch between the different installations that you have.
Awesome. So if someone out there is struggling with it, their best bet is probably to go on GitHub or on the forum, ask you, and you can probably help them through the process. And I'm sure faster
Yeah.
than them trying to go scroll through the world in the internet and
Yeah.
get to
And even when
there.
you go and start a new bug report, the bug report has a template and it will guide you through some of this and says, hey,
Perfect.
go type pyRevit env and file the report and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Great.
So the first time you install pyRevit and then you basically launch Revit, you'll see that this, and I apologize that I'm running everything in a VM, so it's slightly slower than your machine. It generally launches very quickly within like a couple of seconds, loads all the tools and whatnot.
That's all good.
Here,
While that's loading, actually, Ernesto had a great question. Does pyRevit update to the newest version of itself automatically?
no,
So
it
if
does not.
it's not. So when
Uh,
you my follow up with that is if you download a new version and run it, is it overriding
yeah,
the previous version? Perfect.
yeah. The installer will get rid of the older one and install the newer one.
Got
And
it.
for a long time, we had a little bit of troubles getting these sort of like updates to work.
Hmm.
I've added a new command to pyRevit, which is called the pyRevit doctor. So if you have issues with this, come onto issue tracker, report that, and I'll show you how to use that tool to get those older versions uninstalled.
Awesome. Yep. And that's what somebody actually answered who said that they do the same thing. So yeah, I mean, if you're OCD about it, you could probably go on every time there's an install looking for it and install it, right? But if you're just running and it's working until there's some reason you want to update it, you could probably run with the version you're using for now until there's a reason
Yeah,
to update, right? I mean,
yeah, like,
if there's bug fixes or something. But
yeah. So
awesome.
when you launch pyRevit the first time, Revit the first time with pyRevit, you get this output window that sort of like tells you what's happened during the runtime process. I can see an error message in here that's related to one of the tools that it's under development, so you won't see this error message. Basically, everything loads for you. You see this thumbs up at the end, and it gives you how much time it would take to load. You don't have to see this window every time if you don't want to see it. I'm going to go to open an empty model right here and show you that after the pyRevit loads, you get this new tab in Revit that's called pyRevit. So I'm going to switch to that one. And you see these are the base tools that ship with pyRevit. The first panel is called the pyRevit panel. If you open the slide out, you see the About window. So sometimes I ask you about the version of pyRevit that you're running. That's a good place to check it. And one of the most important tools in here is the settings window. So if you open that, there are a couple of different sections that are kind of important when you install pyRevit. You don't have to make changes to them, but if you don't want to see any of those reports, go on the reporting levels, and very, sort of like it's very visual. You can just no reporting, turn that on, and you won't see any reports. pyRevit loads without any sort of like output window and stuff. Sometimes I ask you to put the pyRevit in debug mode. You can go in here and activate this third one, and it spits out a lot of messages, but it helps during the debugging process. Another one that we talked about is the supported Revit version. So on this machine, pyRevit will list all the supported Revit versions, so from 2017 to 2021, and it tells me that you don't have 2017 installed, that one is disabled, and I can activate or deactivate pyRevit for any other versions that I have installed on my machine from right here. You don't have separate pyRevit installations again. It's the same pyRevit that's attached to different Revit versions.
Awesome. Very cool.
You can activate it from here. And one of the other ones that's kind of nice to know is the UI UX. If you go under this, there's one that says the Revit GUI settings, and there's an option that says colorize open documents. So if you activate that, and it's active by default when you open Revit projects, and I'm going to, let's say, start a new template as well in here. So I have 2 projects open. That's probably one of the reasons that you want to get the Bimbox machine. You don't want it to be this slow. And I'm going to, oops, what was this one? Oh yeah, that's the thing that's running in the background. So I'm going to launch the Zoom thing so I can show you, actually it's called magnifier, right? Yeah, magnifier. Okay, so you can see that on top of the tabs, there's a sort of like a thin colored bar. So pyRevit will automatically colorize the tabs per each one of those projects with the same color to kind of give you a little bit of easier way to identify which tabs belong to which projects. And if it's a family, it'll draw a border around it. So it gives you different visuals for different types of projects that you're working on. But basically, this is the standard set of tools that you get with pyRevit. And I can go through and show a couple of these if you want to talk about any.
Yeah, I think maybe and I'll let folks out there if there's anything they really want to dig into as far as the tools they see. I think maybe just highlight a couple of your favorites and show
Yeah,
them what they do. If
yeah,
not,
no
I can choose some
problem.
of mine, but I would love to hear what yours are. And then from there, I'm sure we'll have some questions as well on some of the other ones. But there are a ton of tools in there, so I don't think we're going to go through every single one of them. But I think maybe highlight some of your favorites or and reasons why or something like that.
Yeah, let me actually give you a sort of like an overview of some of these tools. I'll show you how things work in pyRevit in general, so you'll be able to figure out a lot of these tools by yourself. So one of the things about pyRevit is that the buttons have multiple different click modes. This is actually one of the things that I was pretty happy that the new Revit add-on can actually do this, because you can have multiple options for every button. The buttons that have a sort of like a black dot in front of the name, they have configurations for themselves. So if you hold Shift and click on that button, you get the configuration for that command. So for the pick tool, I get a configuration that lets me pick the most used categories for myself that help me with the pick tool. And I'll show you how the pick tool works. For the match tool, I get a series of configurations for how the match tool should work. Instead of having one configuration window that configures all the tools, you get the configuration for every one of the tools on the tool itself.
Awesome.
Now, if I want to use this tool, I don't shift click. The shift click description is described in the tooltip. So a lot of these tools, if you just hover over them, they'll tell you how they work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to click on the pick tool, and I get a series of categories that I get to configure however I want, the ones that are most used by me during my workflows. And in this example, I'm going to click on the doors, and I can just box select and pick up the doors only instead of having to select everything. This is especially going to be slow because Revit wants to draw these work sharing tags on every element.
Yep.
So it's better to just select these, and you can see in this selection, I've only selected the doors on this project.
Yeah, that one is one of my favorites. Like I said, I spend so much time in my life dragging across thousands of curtain panels, you know what I mean, just to get to the grids or something.
Yeah.
And then filtering through, and like that just to reverse that is so powerful, man. So powerful.
And it has two different variations for picking detail elements. So if you want to see the detail element, the 2D elements that live on that view only, or if you want to select the sort of like 3D model elements. Mm-hmm. So it has two different variations that work slightly differently. You can use the pick tool in combination with the selection memory that I call. If you remember, if anybody has used the old calculators or any of the calculators today, the calculators have a memory in them, M plus, M minus, M clear, that you can add something, you can do a calculation, add it to the memory, do another calculation, and add it to or deduct it from whatever's in the memory. So we have the same mechanism inside pyRevit. You can say, hey, I want to select all the doors. And you can say, go and write this to memory. And I do the write on the first time because I want to clear anything that I had before. Mm-hmm. And I can say pick, let's say, walls in this example. And then I can go back to pyRevit and say, instead of writing this time, append or M plus to the memory. And then when you're done doing all the selection, you can just say memory read, and it would read the complete selection for you. Nice. This is a great selection tool, especially if you want to select like a big portion of the building. You can go between different views. This keeps the selection in memory, even if you close Revit, and it's by project. So sort of like whatever project that you're using on has its own selection memory. And you can go between different views, pick the different things that you need to do. And then once you come back and select everything, it would reselect all those selections for you.
It's awesome. So it's almost like a quick selection set, right? Or save set, or whatever you want to call it. It's really cool. Exactly. Yeah.
And if you go under the memory options, you can save that selection as a selection set also, whatever that you have, and you can apply it as a filter and filters through it and whatnot.
Awesome. Before you jump on, there are two questions that I think are worth looking at. The first one is two people actually asked it. So Carlos and I forgot who asked it before. Sorry, but can you apply keyboard shortcuts to these tools?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna type in KS, which is the standard keyboard shortcuts window in Revit, and then you can see this is actually true for any Revit add-on, not just pyRevit, but you can see the pyRevit tab in here as well. And you can see all the pyRevit tools right here. Fantastic. And you can click on these and apply a shortcut to them the way you want to.
And then the other question was about the the colored tabs, which by the way I love. I'm actually against this question because I actually kind of like how it's a little minimal, but that's just me. People were asking if you can make it thicker or color the whole tab, or make the graphic of that colored tab.
I played with making it thicker. The problem is that it sort of like shifts the icon and the title a little bit downwards, and I don't want to mess with the rear because it's already a hacky method in this. If you want to get an advanced sort of like version of this, I've put a link inside the setting window. If you go under UI and UX, there's credits to the parallax tabbed views add-on that Parallax team has created, and that gives you a lot more features in the way that you want to color them and all that kind of stuff. So it's more appropriate for advanced users.
I was just gonna say that, yeah. So John Pearson, who's been on here a couple times, he's got a tabbed window, a tabbed view set up that definitely more customizable. I personally like the streamline, but that's just me. The look of it, I'm not a huge fan of the coloring the whole thing, but that's just me. I'm sure people want more. So if you want more, yeah, definitely check out Parallax, the Parallax tools for sure. All right, cool.
Okay, so
let's go, man.
we talked about some of these selection tools, and then I'm going to talk about, let's say, do we want to talk about the make pattern?
I think you should at least make a pattern, because if anyone has not seen it before, I think they're going to probably fall off their chairs.
So let's say I want to create a pattern in Revit. I'm going to draft in any view, model, whatever that you want, something, and I'm going to make it like not too large. Let's draw something that's like a foot by a foot. Like that, and let's turn this off. Okay, so, and this is the boundary of my tile, the tile that I want to tile as the pattern, right? And it doesn't really have to be rectangular, it's a square, so we can make it a rectangle or something like that. And then I can start drawing the lines of my tile. And you kind of have to, you probably have to draw a bigger portion of this pattern that you want, and then figure out which part is the repeating tile and just draw a box around that, right? So I'm just gonna draw something that's like stupid and simple. And oh, by the way, you can use curves, like splines and stuff in there. And you'll select these lines, the pattern lines. You don't need the boundary lines. We only draw them so we can grab the corners. And then you can go to Make Pattern, give it a name. You probably want to click Create Field Region if you want to use it as a field region. There's a whole bunch of stuff to scale it, to rotate it, to flip it in different directions and all that kind of stuff. And then create pattern, pick the corners, and pyRevit will generate a pattern for you. pyRevit actually figures out how to create those old school Revit patterns using this what you've drawn, and sort of like creates that pattern file for you inside
Revit. Anyone out there who's ever tried messing with those text files is probably like, thank God.
I'm going to go draw a field region right here and switch it to the new field region that the tool created for us, and you get this right there. Now, let's say you want to go and adjust some of these lines in here. I'll make this one, I don't know if you can make it bigger, right? I'm going to go select them again, go to pyRevit, make pattern. Instead of creating a new one, I'm going to just click an existing one, create pattern again, and pyRevit will update it for you. You don't have to make changes to it and redraw those kind of stuff, right? One of the other things that you can do is that, let's say I want to draw a filled region in here with this standard sort of like the cross pattern that Revit has. Let's say I want to combine these two together. I can put this on top of this one. And then I'm going to select both of these, both the lines and the filled region that I had, that I created, and then launch make pattern, create the same pattern. And this way you get a combined pattern that has both of these in it. So you can, if you have like a stone pattern and you want to add something else to it, you could just draw these as field ranges on top of each other, select those elements, and pyRevit will read the definition and combine the definitions for you. You can also do rotations, scaling, and all that kind of stuff using the existing patterns. All you have to do is to click on one field region that has that pattern, launch the Make Pattern tool, and make adjustments in here and update the pattern that you have.
So that's combining all of those into one pattern file. It's not doing like a foreground background thing. It's one pattern file. Cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
Exactly. This is actually very helpful with model patterns specifically that we want to create, like, I don't know, floor patterns that's sort of like customized for the way that you're designing stuff.
Yes. I think some people fell off their chairs, by the way. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, like I said, anyone who's ever struggled with that, I remember way back, I don't remember when it was, like 2010, 9, I don't know, I was trying to make an elongated brick pattern or something like that, and I went through the whole motion. There's probably a blog post on it. Actually 2007 maybe, I don't even know, but it was going through and I sort of mapped out how that text file works and I modified it myself. And I don't even think like Hatch 22 or any of those programs were around then. So anyone who's ever done that and sees this is probably like, yes.
Yeah, and then if you launch the make pattern by itself without any selections and pick any of these patterns, you can actually export this to the exact file that we talked about. So if
So
I drop it
exports
on
it
the
to
desktop,
a .pat, right?
yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
And then this way you can use it with AutoCAD if you want to. If I open this right here, you see that crazy text file that we all hate and have a hard time actually creating by hand. So it'll generate that for you, and you can use it with like AutoCAD projects and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I will let you know that the Paul Aubin just said he fell out of his chair. So if you made Paul Aubin fall out of his chair, I mean, you can die happy.
That's nice. Yeah, exactly.
What's up, Paul? Nice to see you, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I don't think I see any questions about it. Actually, let's see. Rick just asked. Yeah, so I think you answered it. Maybe he's getting there, but he asked if you could stack several patterns on top of each other. I guess you showed that you can. So Rick, yes, you can. Is there a limit to the amount of things you could stack? I mean,
I don't think so. I didn't put any hard-coded limits to this. It's just that I guess the number of lines that get there would probably get too complex, and it would take a lot of time to generate those. One of the weird things about this tool is that it kind of has to tessellate and separate these lines and the curves and stuff, and then go and try to figure out one angle and one length that exactly works with that layout that you want. You kind of have to reverse engineer this pattern into the old sort of like format. And I'm not enough of a mathematician to come up with a better algorithm for this, but it does the job for now.
No, I think that's awesome. I mean, I would think at some point it would be, like you said, I think the resources itself would be, even if you created the pattern, I would imagine that just out of Revit's being Revit, if it was too complex, you would destroy your model with a pattern, which you don't want to do, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things you can destroy your model with, right? Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Let's keep going. This is great.
Okay. And then so you have a couple of modifications tool in here that I'll let you figure out. There's a lot of match properties tool and match tools and all that kind of stuff. How much time do we have, man?
Keep going, man. We're good.
Okay. So I'll let you play with these kind of stuff. There's a lot of these tools actually have videos attached to them. So in this case, you can see that I'm at match property material properties from two different types right onto top of each other. So you can sort of like use this to match things. And then this basic match tool can match, as the video is showing, sort of like, what is it? Visibility overrides, element visibility overrides in views, or the dimension settings that you have between different dimensions and whatnot. So these match tools are quite powerful. And then
it's the way the match tool, it's the way you think the match tool would work, right? That's
exactly. Yeah. So like a quick example of it here would be if I have something in here and there, and if I go and say this one, let's say, I don't know, verified in field or something like that, and I have that dimension string, I can go here and say match, pick that one and pick this one, and this one also gets that same settings. And if you shift click on the tool, you get to decide which one of these properties do you actually want to match when you match properties.
Fantastic. So yeah, so that's great. So you can choose what it pulls over and what it doesn't if you have a large. Is there I didn't notice it, and I honestly have never paid attention. Is there a multi-select for that? So once you click match, you can click.
So once you click the source one, you can keep continue selecting as many other ones as you want to match to.
Awesome. So cool.
So there's a lot of tools on their sheet that are super powerful. Take a look at the batch sheet maker. It allows you to create multiple sheets at the same time really quickly. Lots of tools for the revisions. One of the things that I wanted to show that's sort of like new to pyRevit in the most recent versions, and I want everybody to install and play with, is the Managed Keynote Manager that actually has support. That has support for. I got to open one of the BIM 360 projects that I have. That has BIM 360 support. So if you have used pyRevit before, this Keynote Manager comes with pyRevit and sort of gives you an easy interface to manage your keynotes and attach them to the project and to the elements and all that kind of stuff. It's a decent Keynote Manager. One of the benefits that it has is that it works with the existing infrastructure inside Revit, which is the text file for the keynotes. It manages that text file in a way that is multi-user, so multiple users can actually make changes to the same Keynote file without overriding each other. If the Keynote file is sitting on a server somewhere, But in this case, we have added a support to it to sort of like be able to work with BIM 360. If you open a BIM 360 project and open this, you can see there's BIM 360 running in front of it that tells you the BIM 360 is the source. The way it works is that with BIM 360, you have this BIM drive that is sort of like synchronizing all the contents of that project to your local drive. The text file is right here, but the challenge is that keeping this synchronized with the server. The Keynote Manager in pyRevit uses the Autodesk Desktop Connector API that must be running on your machine to request synchronization of these files and stuff. So when I open Keynote Manager like this, if I go to my BIM 360 project, and let's refresh this, you'll see that the Keynote text will be locked, which is part of the BIM 360 API by me, because I have that Keynote file open. And then I can make changes to this. And when I close this, it will update the Keynote file, will synchronize and unlock the Keynote file right from here. So if I refresh again, you'll see that it will be get unlocked. You'll see that version number increase. In this case, we didn't change anything, but sort of like test it out, make sure it works with your BIM 360 projects, and it's sort of like fast enough and whatnot. I'm collecting comments to improve it. Awesome. And one of the other tools, while we were talking about this, and I'm trying to go through so we don't go too much over time, is this print sheet tools that is a powerful print tool. I'm going to switch to this tiny template that I have, and I'm going to launch the print tool. This print tool has a lot of features. It automatically detects your drawing indices. You can pick the one that you have organized and sorted the way that you want it for your project. It reads the exact sorting. You can add the sort of like multiple levels of index number to the names. It has different naming formats that you can sort of like customize, especially if you're sending to municipalities and stuff. You can grab values from title blocks and sheet parameters and all that kind of stuff and place them as part of your names and customize that. And then it'll preview the name of the PDFs, and it will print everything in order for you, adding these indices to the names. And you can also combine everything into one PDF if you need to. One of the other killer features that it has, if the printer supports it, you can use the variable paper size for the prints. So you can pick a different, let's say I want to print the drawing index and the survey, let's say, using a different print settings, using a color print settings, for example. This will print in order using different print settings. So this way, some of the sheets come out in color, some of them don't.
Nice. A quick question I have for that is, has there been a request, or has there been a thought of also creating CAD exports using that exact setup? So one of the things that we run into all the time is I'm working mostly on the CM side when it's with these larger projects, is hey architect, can you send the model, the PDFs, and a CAD version of the PDFs, right? So, and there's always this little back and forth of well, we got to do this export, we got to do that export. So I know there's some tools out there, but I was curious if that's ever come into discussion.
Not really, to be honest. We have a tiny tool here that's called like list links, list of videos and stuff. And one of the nice things about pyRevit that it has is, let me actually show this in this project maybe. This is the one, yeah. Let me click a couple of these. And then sort them, select using the clickable links. So a lot of times when you get a report from pyRevit, you see these links inside the output window. These are active links. So if you click on it, it'll actually take you to that element that you have selected. So if you use that for links, every time you click on any of these stuff, it will take you to where that link is actually located. In this case, if I click on this magnifier, it will actually zoom in and show me exactly that Keynote object. And it works with a lot of different things. Like it would list sheets that way, it would list elements that you're trying to find that way, views that way, and whenever you click on it, it will open and take you to that specific element that you're looking for.
Cool. Awesome.
There's a quick tool in here that some people might find it useful. It's called Get Revit Info. And if you click on that and select any Revit model, it has, let's say, desktop test files. Let's use one of these. That's 2018. It will report the sort of like version of the file, version of Revit that has created that file with the build number and some of this stuff. It reads it off of the project information, the model information inside the Revit file. So that's a quick tool to sort of like figure out what kind of project that you're dealing with. There's a whole lots of tools in here, but we don't want to spend too much time talking about like every single one. Batch sheet maker is very popular. The copy update selected views is very popular. It allows you to copy views between the different sheets or move them between the different sheets.
Yeah, there's
Revision
that was a fan favorite. I think 2 or 3 people in the chat said that copying
yeah,
between views is one of their favorite, or between sheets, sorry, was one of their
yeah, you
favorites for
can
sure.
set, let's say I want to go to this project and create a couple of revisions. I can go here and say, hey, I want to set a couple of revisions on the project. Oops, sorry, there's something running in the background because I'm developing something that I'll show you really quickly. Okay, so set revisions on sheets, and I want to say 2 and 4 on these sheets, let's say. And you can select as many as you want. And it would set these for you. Don't worry about that one. Set these for you. And then you can go and say, hey, create revised sheets for that revision. And it would create a sheet set for you. Will report what sheets has been included. And if you go inside print now, the print window, you'll see that there's a sheet set here for that revision that has those sheets selected right here very easily, that you can just click print and print them out. So there's a whole lot of like tools like this that make your life a little bit easier using
Definitely.
Revit.
Somebody had a question, actually. That's a pretty good question. I mean, I know some of these do apply, but Greg asked if there's any applies that are especially beneficial to MEP users. I mean, I think that some of these sheet ones and all of these can definitely be applicable to selection ones, but is there anything that you could say would be maybe specifically beneficial to MEP users?
Not on the, I would say not on this sort of like default set of tools. A lot of them are related to the project and management of the project in general.
Yeah.
Partly because I'm an architect by practice, so I haven't really created any tools for MEP. But pyRevit has an extension system. So if you open the extension manager here, like for example, PyApex extension has a couple of MEP tools that you could use, or pyRevit MEP has a couple of tools that you could use. So you could install an extension and it would load that extension for you inside the Revit interface using the pyRevit, and you get a whole new set of tools. And you could add your own tools this way to the pyRevit extension manager and sort of like share it with everybody else if you want to.
Definitely. I would also say that the wipe tool, which you didn't talk about, could possibly be useful for them too.
Yeah.
The wipe tool is one of them. I'd love to hear sort of your just run through of it, because it's one of those tools that's super powerful, but I also think it's super dangerous. It's, right?
Yeah,
it can be extremely dangerous. So maybe for folks who haven't seen it before, just explain it a little bit.
I get a lot of requests to disable that tool.
I was just gonna say, I bet.
So I guess this is one of the only tools in pyRevit that has a red icon, just to let you know that this is kind of dangerous. But wipe model components will give you a lot of wipers that each one of them clean off a series of stuff in your Revit. Like for example, you can remove all the views, but which is area plans only. Remove all unreferenced views, for example, all the rooms, all the filters, and all that kind of stuff. And you can select any combination of these that you want and clean up the Revit model. I use this a lot when I want to send just the geometry of the model outside with some metadata, to get rid of all the materials and sheets and views and all that kind of stuff from my project and send it outside. There's a couple of other wipe tools that help you debug some of the issues with Revit models. For example, wipe unused filters or unused view templates. That's one of the issues that a lot of people have with Revit. You have leftover view templates that we have to continuously rename do not use, or something like that. Yeah. So it'll help you get rid of those kind of stuff in your projects. Or the empty elevation tags. If you deal with creating a plugin, sometimes you want to get rid of the data schemas that are inside your model. That kind of stuff. It gives you a lot of tools that way that you can get rid of things.
Awesome. Yeah. No, wipe tool is also one of my favorites, because I'm making what we call container files, and so that's keeping all the guts but getting rid of model content. And before that, it's just select everything in a 3D view and hope that you can press delete and call it a day, right? Yeah. Which isn't necessarily usually the most efficient way to do it. Let me just check any questions before we move on a little bit. Speaking of dangerous tools, is it possible to modify? So Dana is asking, is it possible to sort of disable some of these tools for users or in deployment or whatnot?
So for anybody that sort of like wants to get into development with pyRevit, you kind of have to customize the tool set that you have to deploy it to your users. But the pyRevit tools are sort of like a reflection of the directory structure of the pyRevit extension. So if I alt-click on any of these tools, it'll take me to the exact script that is behind that tool. If you make changes to the script, click on that button again, it'll run the updated version of that script. But you can see in this directory structure, I have pyRevit tools.extension, pyRevit.tab that creates that tab, selection panel that creates the selection panel, pick, split push button that creates this sort of like push button here, split push button, and the pick push button, which is that button itself. So you could grab, like you could go and grab and copy this pick push button and combine these tools in any other way that you want to, or get rid of this wipe tool that if you don't want to, that kind of stuff, and sort of like
You're just removing the button. That's basically what you're doing, right?
You just remove it. If I delete this folder right now and reload pyRevit, that one will go away from the interface.
Got it.
So you could customize the extension that comes with pyRevit in any way that you want. Maybe add a couple of other tools that you have to that extension and deploy that one to your users.
Awesome, super cool. Somebody asked, Giuliano asked if there's any thoughts on using Python 3 for development.
So there is experimental support for Python 3 right now. I'm going to switch to pyRevit Dev, which is a development panel. This is not the tab. This is not something that you get by default. You have to clone the full repo to get that. But I'm just going to use that to show you the example. So this is the CPython command. Let's so CPython engine. Let's test that one. And you can see that this got executed in Python 3.85. And sort of like it sorted it loaded all the modules and all that kind of stuff. We have experimental support for it. It allows you to grab some information and use CPython modules like NumPy and SciPy and all that kind of stuff to process some of these information inside the Revit environment. I would say because the fact that Revit API is inherently slower than IronPython or CPython scripts that you're running, if you're dealing with the Revit API, you don't really get to benefit from the CPython. So it's kind of better to, a lot of times that's what I do. I write up IronPython script, which I'm very familiar with, and it's sort of like easier to work with Revit, to grab the data that I need, and then I use the CPython script to process that data outside of the Revit environment. This way I can use the power of multiprocessing and all that kind of stuff to be able to process, sort of like process that data a lot faster that way.
Awesome. Somebody asked, can you quickly just show how you brought up that extension, the tab management, the button management that you did? What was it, Alt? Wait.
Yeah. So
sorry. No, wait. He's asking about the extension manager. I apologize. So extension manager was on the pyRevit pull down, I believe.
Yeah. So it's right here, extensions, and it'll give you the extension manager.
So there you go. I think that was Valor VDC. Thanks for the question. Awesome. All right. That was all the questions. I was just reading through this. Ernesto asked, can Python work with the generative and computational workflow? So I'm assuming he's talking about the new generative design stuff. Is pyRevit connected to that in any way? I mean, is it, can it be?
So one of the things that you kind of need in a generative workflow environment is the interactivity that you need with that generative algorithm that you have created to be able to change sliders and all that kind of stuff. For that reason, visual programming environments like Grasshopper, which I've loaded, I did not. Let's load that one right here. This is the other project that I'm working on as part of McNeil. It's called Rhino Inside Revit. It brings Revit and Rhino and Grasshopper inside the Revit environment. And we have a lot of tools and components built for that. So this sort of like, it's very similar to what Dynamo does, except that it gives you access to Rhino's geometry engine and the 3DM open file format. So you could do sort of like, the same things that you do, and also have access to the huge ecosystem of Grasshopper extensions that's already available. So that these kind of environments are better for generative design. Like in this example, I'm just going to show you something really quickly. This is the Grasshopper running inside Revit environment. And let's say I have a couple of walls in here, and I want to grab their geometry. I'm going to open Grasshopper. I'm going to grab, drop, and all these sort of like hexagonal icons, they're Revit aware components. So I can right click and say multiple graphical elements. I'm going to select these two and go back here, go to Revit tab, and from element, grab the element geometry, let's say, and throw this inside the geometry. And I can get Rhino BRefs out of this right here. And I can launch Rhino right from here inside the Revit environment. This Rhino inside Revit effectively makes Rhino and Grasshopper an add-on to Revit, right? So I can launch that one, and I have the full geometry in here, and I can bake it, and I can do, and then Rhino supports 40 something file format, so you can export it right from here to anywhere you go. And then you have a lot of things to build tools and use direct shapes and query documents and create custom filters and everything else that you kind of need to use. So this kind of environment is a lot better for generative design.
Awesome. Yeah. And I actually had Marcelo was on the show, I don't know, sometime in the summer. I'll have to pull it up. So, and he was actually going through Rhino inside Revit too. I think he did a whole, if I remember correctly, it feels like a long time ago, he did a whole step-by-step. So pretty full circle here that you're also here and talk about Rhino inside Revit. If you guys are interested and want to see Marcelo's talk on that, or episode on that, just go to live.bimafterdark.com, scroll down, because I don't remember what episode number it was off the top of my head, but awesome tool there too. All right, cool. I was just checking. We got people are loving it, man. They're loving it.
I can take like 5 minutes to talk about a couple of like more advanced pyRevit features.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't think anyone would be upset if you jumped into a little more. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of different things just randomly, just to show you that pyRevit is really more than what the tools that are available that sort of like they provide to you. You can use pyRevit to deploy your own tools to everybody else in your office, and sort of like use it for telemetry and monitoring and whatnot. One of the things that I'm going to show you is that pyRevit extensions have a system that's called hooks. So I'm going to go and show you an existing extension that I have, which is this dev tool that I have. So inside the extension folder, there's a folder that's called hooks. And inside of it, I've defined a hook that's called the document updater. It's this very simple Python script that kind of looks like this. Import a few things, find the document, get all the walls, get the unconnected height, which is the height of the wall, and set it to 5. As I'm running, you might have noticed this, but as I'm running, I'm going to turn off Grasshopper here, running the wall tool, and I'm drawing walls, the document updater is running the background, making fixes to the wall height. So imagine you could use this mechanism. This is part of Revit API, but part of it makes it so much easier to use. You could use this to, let's say, as you're drawing stuff, tag them or keynote them inside the view that you have, or make some adjustments or attach some sort of a calculated property that you want to attach to those elements and whatnot. This is really a good system to sort of like make the workflows easier for the users and guarantee some sort of a consistency for the data that they're supposed to add to the elements and whatnot. So this is one of the important things that if you get into pyRevit development, make sure to check out the hooks. The other thing that I was going to show you is the pyRevit telemetry system that I've talked about. And I'm doing the pyRevit workshop soon. So each one of the workshop sessions is going to be one of these topics, and we'll get into detail about all of this. On this machine, I'm running a sort of like a database engine, which is MongoDB. I'm going to pull up that information, the window right here. I'm running a Mongo instance of MongoDB and Metabase, which is sort of like a business intelligence data analytics kind of platform. And I have the pyRevit server, telemetry server running in this window. The telemetry configuration is inside the pyRevit settings. So if I open this and go to under telemetry, you see these two boxes turn into orange. They confirm that that path to the database is accessible. They can collect script telemetry and application telemetry. Script telemetry is every time you run a pyRevit script, and application telemetry is things like document closed, document opened, document synchronized, and all that kind of stuff about the what Revit is basically working on. And then it'll send inputs to the server. So let's say I just launched the setting, and maybe I do open another view or something like that, or maybe open a new empty document, let's say here. And if I go back to the server, you can see that server is receiving these commands from all the instances of pyRevit that you're running and pushing that to your database. And then you can use something like Metabase and say, hey, ask a question, show me all these script events that is being collected this way. And you can fully customize this and create charts and all that kind of stuff outside of it to be able to manage your environment, see all the errors that's happening on your script and whatnot. Or maybe you want to use this with the events. So I can go and see the events and see all the list of events and figure out like, I don't know, like how many times a project has been synchronized today, or like what kind of projects are active at the same time and that kind of stuff. So it gives you a very powerful free telemetry system that comes shipped with pyRevit that you could use. So these are like an example of some of the other more advanced things that come with pyRevit as a framework. I've documented all of this inside the wiki. If you go to the wiki and the developer docs, the hook system, there's an example for creating your first hook here. And the hook documentation is right here, extension hooks. And the telemetry system is fully documented in here and has all the information that you kind of need to set up the databases and all that kind of stuff in there too.
Nice. Awesome. Wow. Well, people definitely loved it. And I knew they would, which is why I had to get you on. And thank you, John Pearson, for connecting us, because I asked him to reach out. Anything. So actually, you just mentioned a workshop. Maybe how can people... Is that something? Is that a public workshop? What is that online? I mean, what's the? How can people get to
I'm
that?
working on the layout of the workshops right now. I don't have the page to show you right here. I don't have it on here, but I'm working on the layout of the workshop. It's going to be 5 to 6 sessions, and I'll announce the dates. It'll probably happen sometime in January. We have came up with an idea for this workshop that's sort of like new, and it's sort of like, we want to try it out. Okay. So I have to make sure that the other friend that is supposed to be on this workshop is open also, and we'll throw it in the January, and I'll let everybody know in the Twitter as well.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that everyone has access to your Twitter. I'll post the link to it here in the description. I'll also post a link to the wiki page, which is everything that you've been showing here, which is the Notion site. And anything else? Any final words? I mean, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you want to find me, my sort of like, it's not a website really. My public links are under ein.sh, and I'll give you the pyRevit sort of like wiki and the Twitter and GitHub and all that kind of stuff that you need to know about me. And if you want to get in touch with the rest of the pyRevit users, make sure you join the forums and ask questions, and hopefully all the answers will be documented there for everybody else to use too.
Awesome. So ein.sh. Perfect. Ehsan, thank you so much, man. This was great. Thank you guys, everyone here who's been chatting the whole time. It was pretty active. Everyone seems to be super enjoying it. We made a couple people fall off their chairs, including Paul Aubin, so that's always a successful night for me.
That is a success myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ehsan. I appreciate you being here. Thank you all for joining me. If this is your first time, make sure you subscribe to the channel here. I think I'm at 38,000. I want to hit 40,000 by the end of the year, so you guys got to subscribe. That'd be so cool to hit 40,000 subscribers. So make sure you subscribe below. I'll see you guys all next week. What's that?
And click on the bell in your
oh yes, subscribe and click on the notification bell. and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. If you want to see the previous 35 episodes, head over to live.bimafterdark.com. I want to thank BIMbox for sponsoring this episode, and you guys are amazing. I'll see everyone later. Have a lovely night. Ehsan, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.